the mother, and the other one must be a male named as the father. So what that does, that rule produces some perverse effects in the state of Texas. That means that under current law, more than 9,000 adopted children being raised by same-gender parents do not have a supplementary birth certificate that accurately represents the family that they have. I represent many of these families in the district. They babysit or play with my daughters. They go to school with them. And today, the public policy that we're seeking to further attempts to place them on similar ground with their peers and provide a birth record that accurately reflects their parentage. Later, you're going to hear from some of these families, and they're going to share with you how the current law presents legal, social, and personal obstacles for both the parent and child, and why it's imperative for these children to have birth certificates that are accurate. The law was not always this way. In fact, the prior law on supplementary birth certificates simply read that the supplementary birth certificate of an adopted child must be in the name of adopted parents. It was that straightforward and that simple. Then in 1997, one of our former colleagues that many of us served with, Will Hartnett, amended House Bill 1091 to make the provision gender specific, which creates the problems that we have today. 18 years later, Representative Hartnett said in the Texas Tribune that he would want the measure reconsidered if there was some evidence that it was causing hardship for children. He said this in 2013. So House Bill 537 is our opportunity to reconsider that piece of legislation and go back to the prior law. It is imperative that all of these children have supplementary birth certificates that accurately reflect their families. You know, other states work on this and have this issue. South Carolina, which is a state that often is compared to Texas, although on a much smaller scale, they amended their supplementary birth certificates to read mother/parent and father/parents with no restrictions on gender. And that way children in loving families with same-gender couples can have the birth certificate that reflects their family. Without these really state protections that we give adopted children, they can end up in legal limbo. So members, I'd ask that you listen to the testimony. This is the fourth session that we filed this bill. And I'm really grateful to the chairman and the members of the committee for hearing it. What you're going to see up here are loving families, families that are my neighbors, my friends, constituents. And regardless of what you think about the parents, this state should be about promoting policies that protect children and foster adoption. And that's what this bill does. So members, I'm thankful that you've allowed me to lay this bill out today. Kindly listen intently to the stories that you're going to hear today, and I reserve my right to close.
Chairman Turner,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Chia, do you know how long the law was in place prior to 1997?
No, that's an answer I don't have off the top of my head. I will get that to you. But I think, let me look back, because I think it is in my talking points that my staff are really rigorous about.
And essentially, you're simply asking that we return to the law as it was
prior to 1997.
Prior to 1997.
That's what we're asking for. Maybe a small modification of one word. It's an article, essentially. Instead of each parent, it's both parents. But it doesn't. If we went back to the language that existed before verbatim, it would be great.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good deal.
Thank you.
Mr. Chia, could you describe some examples of legal limbo?
Well, the obtaining of travel documents, you have medical records, you have FERPA concerns about privacy. When you are unable to prove that you're an adoptive parent of a child, it creates a number of different obstacles. You're going to hear some testimony that'll talk about real life situations, but we certainly hear it from our constituents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions for our chairman and Chia? If not, we'll go ahead and start taking your witnesses.
Thank you.
Amber, is it Burfine? I hope I got that right. Independent Adoption Center, representing Independent Adoption Center and herself here for testifying for the bill.
Yes, sir. Hi, my name is Amber Burfine, and I'm here to testify in support of the bill. I am the branch director of the Independent Adoption Center located in Houston, Texas, and I'm a licensed master's degree social worker who has devoted my career to working with children and families. Over the past 19 years, I've worked for Child Protective Services as well as the Independent Adoption Center, and I've always been an advocate for families and children. As a social worker in an adoption agency, my focus has always been on what's in the best interest of the children that we place, allowing both adoptive parents, excuse me, I'm getting over being sick, allowing both adoptive parents to be listed on a child's birth certificate is in the child's best interest, as every child deserves to have both of their parents listed on their birth certificate. House Bill 537 is so important because of the impact it will have on children in their everyday lives. A birth certificate is used to register a child for school, for medical treatment, and even international travel. This bill helps to protect the child, as the birth certificate is the document most institutions use to determine who is the legal parent. Texas should encourage family stability by ensuring parents are recognized and valued for the influential role they have in their children's lives. As someone who has spent the last 19 years working with children and families, I fully support this bill and believe that it should be passed. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you.
Members, members, do you have any questions? I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you.
Julie Drenner, Texas Values, here to speak against the bill.
Thank you, members and chairman. I'm Julie Drenner with Texas Values. I just have 2 points I'd like to quickly make. One was that we received an email from the Texas Department of Health Services, which would state that DSHS would need to modify more than 20 forms which currently reflect the names of the mother and father to show the parent and co-parent to comply with this bill. As the chairman stated, this bill has come up before, and so we've asked these questions, and I just wanted to bring to your attention that it will not only affect the supplementary birth certificates, but it will affect all birth certificates going forward, and also 20 other forms that DSHS provides. So we think that that's significant because you're taking away the words mother and father, and I think it was very pertinent for you to talk about going back to the 1997 language, because that little word that would also be changed would go back from right now it has the adoptive parents and talks about mother and father, and the bill talks about making it both parents. And so if you go back to 1997, you put the parents, you may end up with what's happening in Massachusetts right now. April of 2014, there are 3 women that are claiming to be married, that one of them was pregnant at the time. They're all claiming that they want to adopt the child, they love the child, they want the birth certificate to reflect their family as 3 mothers and 1 child. So if you go back to the 1997 language where it has the word the instead of both, then you're opening the door to having to answer the question that Massachusetts is now having to answer, which is if you would have more than 1 parent put on the birth certificate. And that's all that I have for you. Thank you.
Members, any questions? And I think in listening to Chairman Anchia, he talked about whether it would be mother and parent, or I guess father and parent. But you know, I got to tell you, Julie, I'm struggling a little bit because I've been on this committee. This is my 7th term, and I remember when Chairman Swinford chaired this committee, and we were struck by how many couples were actually adopting children that had special needs, and other folks weren't doing it, and we struggled. Why didn't the traditional community, why aren't they there for these kids? And these other folks are. That's a terrible indictment on one group, to be real honest with you. So I'm really, and with regard to your issue of you got to change some forms. So what? I mean, I really don't understand. I really don't understand that argument at all. But I'm interested in hearing everybody. But I can tell you, Right now in Texas, we are struggling. We do not have enough parents that are willing to adopt. I know a little bit about it because I've got a biological child and an adopted child, and I can tell you we don't have enough parents. So thank goodness for people that will adopt children and give them loving homes. All I can tell you.
I agree. My brother is adopted and my husband is adopted, so I very much understand that. And I guess what our issue with the forms is just we just wanted to bring to the attention that it's going to be all birth certificates that would be changed going forward. So whether you were whatever kind of family that you were, it wasn't just the adoptive birth certificate. So that was my point to that. But I appreciate your comments and thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Langsley, here representing herself, attorney at law, here to speak for the bill.
Good afternoon, Chairman, committee members.
Can we start out, I know, can we start out with your name and who you represent, just so
Yes, sir.
doing this exactly right?
I'm Karen Langsley. I'm an attorney here in Texas. I am one of the first 11 child welfare law specialists certified in this state. I practice child protective services litigation. I'm on the State Bar Committee on Child Abuse and Neglect, and most of my practice involves children who've been abused or neglected or their families. I'm holding this picture up here today because one of the people who testified or wanted to testify, these girls are her children. These twins belong to her. And she wanted you all to take a look at her kids, so I'm bringing this picture here. These are children who were adopted by two parents, and those parents had to sit down before the adoption hearing and make a choice as to who was going to be on the birth certificate. And that's not a choice we would want anybody to make. The primary reason that I'm here is to speak as an adoption attorney. There are 14,000 children in the permanent managing conservatorship of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Right now, there's close to 4,000 here in Central Texas. And, Mr. Chairman, you are absolutely right. We don't have enough adoptive families. I've done adoptions for kids whose parental rights have been terminated here in Texas because they were the victims of child abuse and neglect. And what happens is when those kids go to loving families outside the state of Texas where people who are legally married there want to adopt those children cannot have either parent currently on their birth certificate. They cannot have either legal parent on their birth certificate because the form that you fill out when you are legally married, send it to Texas Bureau of Vital Statistics and say, okay, we've adopted these kids. You're required to have the names of the married couple on that certificate. I've had 3 cases now where because there were either 2 men or 2 women on that certificate of adoption, same as we are required to do here, BVS sends it back and says, well, pick one. Well, you can't pick one because a certificate of adoption is a legal document that records what occurred in court. And so those children are now going forward with only the names of the terminated abusive parents on their birth certificates. And those children are in danger of those parents going into BVS, asking for another copy of their kid's birth certificate because I lost it or whatever, taking that down to Social Security and perpetrating identity fraud on the children. So it's not insignificant for these kids. The other thing that I wanted to point out to you was that it doesn't make sense for only adopted children to be subject to this provision that is currently in the Health and Safety Code. So that the kind of discrimination that we're talking about that we have fought so hard against to treat adopted children the same way that we treat other kids who are natural, they have both their natural parents, biological parents, we are making a distinction. And if Representative Anchia's legislation is passed and you vote for this to pass out of committee, then what will happen is those children, those adopted children, will not be treated differently anymore. So I'm urging the committee to please support this legislation for the adopted children that are coming, for the adopted children who need homes. Do not make a distinction between those children who are adopted and those who are lucky enough to have two parents to whom they were born. There are many, many kids out there who need forever homes, and we don't want to put them through any more trauma than they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Yes, Chairman.
Just to clarify.
Yes,
so
sir.
the law that's currently in place, that's been in place, only applies to kids that are in an adopted situation only.
Yes, sir. That is
It
correct.
doesn't apply to the other kids.
That is correct.
And what Representative Anchia's bill it will do is that it will treat all kids alike. Would that be a fair statement?
What's happening is the section of the Health and Safety Code that it applies to talks about amended birth certificates or supplemental birth certificates, so that when you change anything on any birth certificate,
Right.
it becomes amended or supplemental. In this case, because of the adoption, you are changing information that was on the original certificate. This section only applies to kids who are adopted.
Okay.
And we do have situations, for example, in Bexar County, which does the most CPS adoptions of any county in Texas, and they get a lot of federal funds in for that. More often than not, we're talking about a situation where a parent's rights are terminated and a grandparent adopts. And frequently what we'll do is we will do the home study and everything on another younger relative and put that person on the birth certificate, because these families don't have the resources to, if grandma or grandpa dies, go back, get a lawyer, try to get some legal papers in place, either a suit affecting parent-child relationship or another adoption in place, to have an adult family member take care of that child. We put the younger relative on so that there's a fallback position for this kid. And frequently it's grandma and an aunt, or it's grandpa and an uncle. And again, in that situation, even though it's all within the family, you can only have those children who are adopted can only have one male listed as the father and one female listed as the mother. And if we just take that away, we won't have that problem.
All right. It just seems as though it's a change that's in the best interest of the kid.
Yes, sir.
Kids. Okay.
I agree with you.
And I
Thank
don't
you.
see any reason why we shouldn't do it.
Thank you.
I think it's an excellent bill. Thank you.
Thank
Any more
you. Members, any
questions?
other questions? Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you,
We
Chairman.
appreciate it. Cecilia Wood, here representing herself against the bill. Okay, we'll show Cecilia Wood not testifying against the bill. Bill Benson, here representing himself for the bill.
My name is Bill Betson. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and it is a joy to hear the things you're saying. I'm a grandpa of a 9-year-old boy, and I'm a professional social worker, LMSW emeritus. I placed children like this young lady for 28 years, 17 years as a CPS investigator in Dallas, and supervisor for a decade. And this is good legislation. It needed to happen a long time ago, and I'm so glad it's being considered. And now it affects my grandson. My daughter-in-law wrote me an email today. She knew I was here to help the open adoption, the original birth certificate legislation pass at another hearing. And she said, by the way, did you know that my name is not on my son's birth certificate? And by God, I hadn't thought about it, but it affects her. She lost custody of her, she didn't lose custody. Her partner lost custody of the son her original partner, when they separated, and the partner's name was on the birth certificate. So now she has legal custody of the child and is with him all the time with my daughter, and her name is not on the birth certificate. It does not make sense. Her name needs to be on that birth certificate. There is a blank. We need honesty in our public records. You're doing a good thing. I hope you will pass this out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Yes.
Mr.
To your point about honesty in public records and just the maintenance of public records, and years from now when something goes awry or maybe not, or somebody's looking for something, I mean, so it just really would never, I mean, think 20 years from now, someone, your grandchild looking for, or your grandchild's grandchild perhaps even down the road, looking for some sort, any kind of, I mean, I can only imagine the scenarios, but there really just wouldn't be a record. I mean, we wouldn't have accurate public records.
Actually, the other bill I'm testifying on is that children would have a legal right, all adoptees as adults, to their original birth certificate.
Right.
So they would always get the original document and, of course, any amended documents.
I mean, I'm talking about the bill that we have today.
We need to keep our comments.
Okay, here to this
You know,
one.
Okay.
I'm talking
Okay.
about this bill. That
Yes.
if your daughter is not, a situation like this, she's not on the birth certificate, on the adopted birth
That's
certificate.
correct, she's not on it.
I mean, I can just imagine the problems, and that's really what I'm trying to get at.
Absolutely,
is-
you're right. It needs to be an honest record.
Right, and I'm trying to figure out what the purpose was of, I mean, I can only imagine of what.
Will Hartnett was a classmate of mine in college. Don't ask me what was going on. I really don't know.
Got it, thank you.
Members, any other questions? Thank you for being here. Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
your testimony. Kristen Edwards, here representing herself, here to speak for the bill.
Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Edwards, and I'm the legal assistant for an adoption attorney here in Austin. We currently do over 50 adoptions each year. Our clients spend thousands of dollars and many months preparing for their adoption, but we have to tell them that in spite of their efforts, they won't receive an accurate birth certificate for their child once the process is complete. We receive emails and calls from worried former clients who have completed an adoption but who are having difficulty adding their children to their insurance, obtaining a passport, or registering them for school because they aren't on the birth certificate. Unfortunately, all I can do is tell them to present their adoption paperwork, explain the situation, and hope for the best. Birth certificates are the most widely recognized form of identifying parentage, and many officials simply aren't familiar with the adoption paperwork. As we speak, clients of ours are in Colorado waiting for the birth of their first child. The adopting parent is from South Africa. In order for their child to receive dual citizenship, she has to be on the birth certificate. The adoption paperwork is not enough. These women made the very difficult decision to drive hundreds of miles to give birth in an unfamiliar state simply because Texas will not allow both of them to appear on their child's birth certificate and Colorado will. I find this unconscionable. For me, this issue isn't only professional, it's also deeply personal. I'm the mother, of a very spirited and beautiful 2-year-old boy. I should have brought a picture, but I didn't. I have a million on my phone. Who is the light and joy of my life and will be the source of my first gray hairs, I'm sure. My partner was there when
And
he was
worse
born.
than that.
My partner was there when he was born. She cut the umbilical cord and subsequently changed at least 2,000, 3,000 diapers. We're the only parents he's ever known. Because I'm his birth mother, though, I'm the only person listed on his birth certificate, even though my partner legally adopted him. Sorry. Thankfully, 2 years into it, we haven't hit any bureaucratic hurdles yet. But even if we don't, sorry, it's rather embarrassing.
You're doing fine. Take your time. You're doing okay.
Even if we don't hit the bureaucratic hurdles, like I've mentioned, I know the day is going to come when our son is going to see his birth certificate, and he's going to ask, why aren't you both on here? I've thought about it a lot, and I have no idea what I'm going to tell him. I hope that you will do the right thing by supporting this bill, and I'll never have to have this conversation with him at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Members, any questions? Thank you.
Thank
you. Andy Miller, here representing himself to testify for the bill.
Thank you very much. My name is Andy Miller. Speaking in support of the bill. I am currently the president and CEO of an Austin-based nonprofit, Any Baby Can, but I'm here speaking on behalf of myself as a father through adoption. My partner Brian and I adopted our son Clark nearly 8 years ago. They are sitting in the back. My son had buried in an iPad. He has a birth certificate with his birth name on it, with his 2 birth parents on it, and that document was sealed by court order upon his adoption to us to protect not only his privacy but also the privacy of his birth parents. But like all adopted children, on what was, I can only say, the happiest day of our lives, when his adoption was finalized with us, he was issued a supplementary birth certificate, which has his new legal name and also reflects the name of, or should have reflected the name of his legal adoptive parents. There was one difference in our case. We were, again, on this day, asked to make a decision as to which of his legal parents would be listed on his birth certificate. And because our son was adopted, through no choice of his own, he did not pick two guys to be his parents. His birth mother chose us to raise him. Although she loved him, she knew that she wasn't going to be able to provide for him the life that she had hoped and dreamed of for him. She chose us to be his parents. The other space on the birth certificate is left blank because we cannot both appear on the birth certificate. And this is not my birth certificate. It's not my partner's. It's our son's. So we're speaking here on behalf of him. This is a document he's going to have to take and carry with him for the rest of his life. And every time he presents it, there will be that blank space. And he will have to explain to an employer, a government official, whomever is examining it, why there is no second parent listed. We think it's humiliating. We think it's demeaning, not just to us as his parents, but to him as a Texan, to not be treated equally the same as every other adopted child in the state who has had the benefit of being adopted. Maybe they got adopted by an opposite sex couple, so they get both their parents listed on their birth certificate. He did not get that opportunity. We wouldn't change a thing. He's the best thing that's ever happened to us. And that's why we're here today, is to talk about his rights and him being deserving of having a birth certificate that accurately reflects both of his parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Yes, Representative Farney.
Thank you for your testimony. Just to make sure I understand, both parents have adopted the child.
We are both legally his parents. We both adopted the child.
Both legally his parents. So
Yes.
that is a legal fact.
Yes, we have an adoption decree stating we are his parents.
But the birth certificate only allows you to have one name.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ann Wynn, representing herself, here to speak for the bill.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Ann Wynn, and I believe this is the fourth time I have appeared with Chairman Anchia in support of this bill. I am a married mother of three. I spent 6 years on the Transportation Commission and 2 years as the chairman of the General Services Commission, which makes me very qualified to testify about this kind of bill. This bill is not about parents. This bill is about children and their right to have both their parents on their birth certificate. And I'm so glad that Representative Farney, you asked that question about the legal effect of the adoption, because these parents are the legal parents of these children. We have, like you, bio children and an adopted child. My husband and I are on the birth certificate of all three of our children. We went through the same process when we adopted. She had a birth certificate that had her bio parents on it. We waited 6 months and passed all the tests, and then the adoption was approved, and then we submitted a form for us to be on her birth certificate. And the only reason why these legal parents cannot do that is because we have mother and father. And what we need to have is mother/parent, father/parent. That's all that needs to happen to have these kids have the same rights that our adopted kid has. The fact that we have second-class adopted citizens, children in this state, we're better than that. And I can't imagine trying to explain to our child why one of us was on the birth certificate and the other one wasn't, or having to have that conversation with my husband to pick one of us to be on the birth certificate. So I would ask that you all show your support for Texas children and pass this out of the committee. I heard somebody, when we were making our visits earlier today, say that parenting is the hardest job that any of us ever have, and that's the truth. And why should we make it any harder than it already is? Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Representative Farrar. And I might add, teenage daughters are the most difficult of all.
I have 2 at home right now that you can have at any moment. I got you. Agreed.
We were just having a side conversation. That was we're talking about Texas adoptions as well, right? These were children that were adopted by same-gender couples in Texas, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Members, yes, Representative Forney.
Thank you for your testimony. I do have one more question. Do you ever have like 2 aunts who adopt a child or 2 uncles who adopt a child, or is it always, is there something like that could be on there as well?
I'm looking to our adoption attorney expert. I am a lawyer, but I don't do adoptions, so I don't know if that comes up or
Because I
not.
can imagine all kinds of circumstances where it would be people living together who are not even necessarily, in a monogamous type circumstance, but it could be, like I said, 2 sisters who are raising another.
Somebody else's
yes.
sister, yeah, they're, exactly.
So does that happen?
I don't think
don't-
under the current form that they can fill in the blank that way.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for being here for your testimony. Lindsay Leverton, here representing herself, speaking for the bill. Okay, we'll show Ms. Leverton for the bill, not testifying. Is there anybody else? Yeah. Okay. We have technology up here, Ralph, you can appreciate it. It moves kind of slow. I have to wait on the names to come up. Okay, is this Lynn Metcalf?
Metcalf.
Well, it's not spelled right. Lynn Metcalf, I'm assuming here, represent himself, testifying for the bill. Okay. We'll just show them for the bill, not testifying. Ananda Moss Bias, here representing herself for the bill. And we'll show Ms. Bias for the bill, not testifying. Darla DeSormas Smith, representing herself for the bill. We'll show Ms. Smith for the bill, not testifying. Zoe Touche, here representing herself for the bill. Zoe, we're glad to have you here.
I'm Zoe Touche. I live in Dallas and I go to Green Hill School. Okay, so.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and then, once again, and tell us whether you're for or against the bill.
Oh, I'm
okay?
for the bill.
Okay.
Okay. I happen to be the child of same-gender parents, and my biological mother is not on my adoption certificate because she didn't adopt me, but my adoptive mother is, and I know it's kind of morbid, but if my biological mother were to die soon, hopefully she doesn't, but because she's not on my birth certificate, in order for me to claim her Social Security, I would have to get my adoption records unsealed, which takes time and money and a judge to say that it's like a valid reason, which might not even happen. And I feel like that as the child of a same-gender parents, I'm not getting the same rights that the child of heterosexual adoptive parents would have because only one of my parents is on my birth certificate. And I don't know, I feel like that's unfair to me personally because I feel like I am a child and I'm kind of getting punished for something which shouldn't be punished. People shouldn't be punished for, if that makes sense. Okay.
Makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
Zoe, you're doing great.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
Okay.
Keep it up.
So,
Members, do we have any questions for Zoe?
thank you.
You know what, and we'll let Chairman Turner will have a question or a comment in just a minute, but thank you so much for being here. I don't know about the rest of the committee, but I'm always very compelled by young people that show up here and testify. Y'all are a lot better than us old people, so keep doing it. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, Zoe, I hope we make as much sense as you have made today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Zoe,
Yes.
how old are you?
I'm 14.
Don't talk about those teenage daughters.
I resent that.
Okay, you're going to be the exception, okay? Between 14 and 18, tough stuff. But thank you very
Thank you so
much for
much.
being here. Okay, Cassandra McLaughlin, excuse me, here representing herself for the bill.
Good afternoon. My name is Cassandra McLaughlin. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I happen to be Zoe's adoptive mother. I would give her back gladly at certain times. However, my name is now on her birth certificate, which is somewhat ironic because I am not her birth mother. And her birth mother did not give up her rights when I adopted Zoe. So I'm the one that shows. This has created some problems for us in the past, actually more for Zoe than for us. We went to get her birth certificate, not her birth certificate, we went to get her passport. And in order for her to have a passport, she has to prove U.S. citizenship. Apparently, all we had was an abstract birth certificate, so we were sent for the birth certificate. Her biological mother filled out the form with the Bureau of Vital Statistics. They called her up 10 days later and said, we can't give you the birth certificate. And she said, why? And they said, well, you're not her mother, and you're not one of the parents listed on the birth certificate. And her response was, she is my daughter. I was there when I gave birth to her. I can confirm that I am her mother. And they said, no, you're really not her mother. And the woman was nice enough to say, can you guess anybody else who might be on the birth certificate? And she did say that I was the other parent of record from the adoption. And so they said, that's a very good guess. Why don't you have her give us a call? So I gave the Bureau of Vital Statistics a call. We did get the birth certificate. Zoe was able to get her passport and go on her trip. However, what it did point out to us was that if I had not been alive, Zoe, and to say that we were both incapacitated or unavailable, Zoe would have had to have been able to access her adoption certificate, go to the Bureau of Vital Statistics to prove, because Zoe doesn't have a driver's license yet, she doesn't have the right to go claim it as simply as we can over the phone. So it has created some problems for us in the recent past, and really more for Zoe. Zoe, I think, started to allude, if she had to present to the Social Security office that she was entitled to benefits for her biological mother, she wouldn't be able to do it simply with her birth certificate. She would have to go through the process of giving them the adoption records and showing that Michelle Touche was her birth mother, is still her mother, didn't give up her rights in the adoption proceeding, which is a little bit more onerous than other children. In addition, we don't know how this is going to play out. We have a son that is 18, and same situation. I'm actually his biological mother, but my name does not appear on his birth certificate because he was adopted. When he's planning on going into the military, and we're not sure if we'll both have rights to visit him on military bases, if we have to prove what our relationship is. We just don't know yet. We haven't faced that. But again, none of this really affects us so much as it affects our children and their rights moving forward. So with that, I would just say I support moving this bill out, recommending it out.
Members, any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to make it perfectly clear, because in your narrative, maybe people were confused, but you and Michelle are together.
Yes.
You're the mommies.
We're the mommies.
You're the mommies. You gave birth to your son. Michelle gave birth to Zoe, and you cross-adopted.
Cross-adopted.
Right? And as a result, you are not on the birth certificate of your son, who presumably came out of your body. And
I have the
Zoe is not on the birth certificate of Michelle, and Zoe came out of her body.
That's correct.
But you're not the mothers on the birth certificate.
On the birth certificate.
That's right.
We are legally, as a legal fact, as you pointed out, we are both the legal parents, but only the non-biological parent appears on the birth certificate.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you for being here. Okay, at this time, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on, for, or against House Bill 537? If not, we're going to call on Representative Anchia to close on this bill.
Thank you, members. A couple different points on this. You know, we always have terrific hearings because you hear the stories of the kids and the parents, and they're compelling. Wanted to answer Chairman Turner's question. The law was initially adopted in 1989 and then was amended in 97, as I alluded to in my comments. So it had been in place for that long. You know, I'm open to suggestions from the committee. I think the easiest solution is to go back to the prior law with the small modification that avoids the concerns that were articulated by the person who testified against the bill, and that is just include the word both as we have it set forth here. In the original language, it was the, but you obviate the problem that was articulated by the family values group that came to oppose the bill by just inserting the word both. Now, I do want to allude to that testimony one more time, to the testimony of this group. Last session, or maybe it was the session before, I laid out this bill, and Jonathan Syons of the same group came forward and testified against it and alluded to the same email that existed. PolitiFact checked out his claims and rated them mostly false, okay, in terms of of the bill requiring us to change 20 different forms. All right, I think it'd be very easy for y'all to call the Bureau of Vital Statistics and figure out what we needed to do so that we could just fix the supplemental birth certificate and not have to mess with any other forms. There are ways to fix it. We're smart enough. We can figure that out. So I just didn't want that testimony to go by without pointing out that very important fact, that they've been fact-checked and their contentions have not held up. So, you know, I would not submit members to the politics of fear. I would instead support children. I would support adoption in this state, and I would support Texas families. So I thank you for your time today, and with that, I close.
Chairman
Chairman?
Barron
Yes, Chairman
Okay,
Barron.
what if it just said parent and parent?
We'd be good with that, too. Parent one, parent two. You know, that works, too.
That's how it originally was, right? 97, pre-97?
Well, no, that's South Carolina, and I alluded to this in my comments. They do father/parent, mother/parent. That's a construct that would work. What doesn't work in the Texas law is it says blank a male, the father, blank a female, the mother. And so if we remove the gender-specific names and just put parent one and parent two, problem solved. And then, you know, and then these children can have honest and accurate birth certificates.
Chairman Chia, I think you can work with the committee. There's no reason we can't address this. We owe it to young people like Zoe to give them some peace of mind on this issue, some clarity. And I'm going to reiterate, as an adoptive parent, we do not have enough people in this state willing to adopt. So thank God for those that are willing to do that and give kids wonderful homes. And I hope that it changes at some point in time, because I can tell you, anybody here that has adopted children will say the same thing. There is no difference between a biological child and an adopted child.
Amen,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Here.
Amen.
No difference. So I hope we'll work together, and I think you can come up with a way to move this forward.
Thank you, members. I'll seek guidance from all of you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. At this time, the chair's intent to leave House Bill 537 pending. The chair is going to lay out House Bills 1617 and call on Representative Patty to explain this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and lay out House Bill 1617, which will be very simple and quick. So I won't belabor the point here. This is essentially a local bill, and what it does is it allows for a land swap between the Department of Public Safety and the First United Pentecostal Church in Center, Texas, in my district. The swap would allow the church to expand and grow its campus, which it greatly needs, and it allows the DPS office to construct a new building about a quarter mile down the road. In addition, the new location for DPS would be more convenient and accessible. The bill is permissive. allowing but not requiring the swap actually be completed. Both the church and DPS are amenable to the swap, and both are in support of this bill. And that's really the gist of it. It does not make them, it basically gives them the authority, if they can come to an agreement. Of course, the property there has to be, it has to be equitable and fair market value for the swap. And that's all this bill does. So I'm happy to answer any questions.